Well, hello again, everyone. We find ourselves at the last stop today of our Around the World journey as we've revisited some of the materials that we shared at the Crop Science Innovation Summit last June. Today, we're going to talk about a hypothetical farmer in India named Ramesh, who is doing some pretty special practices in his smallholder operations.
So for scale, Ramesh is working roughly a tenth of the land of even our greenhouse farmer in Spain. Now, this is normal for the region. As smallholder farming, it supports families and small communities, and this is really prevalent in places like India. That makes every decision really important, high stakes, because this affects livelihoods and communities.
And there are many farmers like Ramesh, and one thing that those farmers today do when they grow rice is they use a lot of water. They use water basically as the main mechanism for weed control. And, it's been a practice for hundreds of years and great familiarity, and obviously we've produced a lot of rice using that method. But, the world's changing, and it takes a lot of labor to grow rice and paddies. That labor is not going to be available in the future. And then the other part, of course, is fresh water is going to become a more and more scarce commodity globally. So effective use of water and of that scarce resource is really critical if we're going to be able to have a sustainable food supply.
It's also not hard to imagine how challenging it might be to get large-scale equipment in a situation like a rice paddy. And so direct-seeded rice brings us a little bit closer to an opportunity for mechanization as well, where we might see rice seeders being developed the same way we use combines in other regions. I think the video will show this a little bit later, but it's also important to note that with mechanization comes some new challenges, like the small margins in smallholder farms and the ability to afford those large-scale equipment. And so I think an ability to facilitate equipment as well as labor sharing in communities is going to be really important.
Yeah, and one of those really important small-scale equipment that farmers can use are drones, right? And so you're seeing a lot of this developing, in particular in Asia Pacific. The drone technology is fascinating, right? You can do scouting, you can do targeted crop protection application, and then what's really interesting in this rice case is you can actually do seeding as well.
And the seed you put in the ground really matters. And so, in the future, we're going to have these Arise hybrids using hybrid rice as the main seed type that farmers would grow in direct-seeded rice operations. And why would you do that? Well, for a couple of reasons. First is hybrid seeds typically are more robust. They're more climate tolerant, so the instabilities of climate will matter. And the environment that they'll be growing in with direct seeding will require just a better rice seed. And so that, and of course having the right tools to be able to control weeds, are very critical elements for Ramesh to be successful.
Of course, we know that rice seedling in a wet system has to be transplanted into the field and flooded, and that makes it more susceptible to pests, in particular something like the stem borer pest. And so controlling that pest can be a little complicated in that type of a system, and that's where direct-seeded rice, dry seedlings also have an advantage because we can coat those seeds with protection, seed treatments and biocontrols that help from the very beginning control for a pest like seed borer.
And like any crop through the season, you also need crop protection products to protect that crop to a successful harvest. And so farmers like Ramesh will continue to need access to herbicides, fungicides, and other solutions that help making a farm be a successful operation and having a fruitful harvest, so that Ramesh can continue to be a farmer into the future and his next generation as well.
And the other important thing for farmers like Ramesh is access to digital tools. Now, in India and other parts of Asia, sometimes broadband bandwidth is an issue, and so you need to think about technologies that can work even with lower capacity. But this is a very important place for people to get agronomic insight, share best practices with other farmers in the community, and our technology that you can see with the FarmRise platform is an example of where we will enable farmers to get at this important information to drive more productivity in their operations.
And through things like the Better Life Farming Public-Private Alliance and, of course, our commitment to the UN Zero Hunger Pledge, we can now say that thousands of these farming centers in India and beyond have been established that help smallholder farmers really get access to knowledge, to insights, to inputs, and help foster a community to help them make the best decisions.
Yeah, and while this is a hypothetical example in India, it isn't just about Indian farmers, right? There are hundreds of millions of smallholder farmers around the world still, and they could take advantage of direct seeded rice if they're farming rice. And so these principles that we lay out today for Ramesh are the same principles that can be applied on those other farms. And it's also really important, in thinking about things like the future of how we want to make sure that those farmers not only are operating successfully, but they're operating sustainably. So I think about things like moving away from backpack sprayers and, as Jeremy points out, using drones. So we hope you've enjoyed kind of the journey throughout the world, and we've looked at all these various farms. I hope you get a bit of a sense of kind of some themes. I think one of them, of course, is integrated systems, having a toolbox available for farmers around the world that they can use to have successful harvests. It's about minimizing inputs and maximizing outcomes. And then finally, I think it's really about a different way of life that really encompasses the use of data and digital and make more informed decision making to help farmers be successful on this incredible balance between increasing our productivity so we can feed the growing population and at the same time really protecting the land and minimizing the impact of farming.